Hello and welcome back to Brown Eyed Philly Girl. If you're new to this channel, welcome in. My name is Alexis, and on this channel I like to talk about my fertility journey. Little disclaimer before we get into the video. The lighting today has been all over the place with the clouds and everything. Just a heads up in advance. Hi Kat, did you want to be in the video too? Before we get into the video though, I just want to say I'm sorry for any loss or losses that you've been through. If you're like me, you've probably clicked on this video because maybe you've gone through a miscarriage of your own, or maybe you're going to go through one. Maybe you found out about a miscarriage, whatever it is that led you to click on this video. I'm really sorry for everything you've been through. I know this journey sucks, but I hope by watching my video or watching other videos, it can at least give you peace of mind that you're not alone. Just a little recap for anybody who hasn't seen my previous video. Long story short, I had a miscarriage and I found out at my first appointment, which would have been my 8-week mark. The baby was measuring 2 weeks behind. Then at the next appointment, we were able to confirm that it was definitely a miscarriage. I waited about 3 weeks until I finally decided to go ahead with the surgery. In my case, they recommended a D&E. Even though I'm first trimester, I'm not entirely sure why they recommended a D&E over a D&C, but just a really short background on me there. If you'd like to know more about the full miscarriage story, you can click the video link here. But for this video, I'm going to be focusing specifically about my D&E and what that was like. It's my understanding, though, that the main difference between a D&E and a D&C is the method that they use in order to perform the surgery. With the D&C, I think that's more scraping, and then with the D&E, they use more of like a suction instrument. Also, another disclaimer, you guys hear some background noise. It's my cat. For some reason right now, he has the zoomies and is driving me insane and is running around freaking out why I'm making a video and sitting still in the living room. It's a crazy concept, I guess. So I'm going to apologize in advance for that. So before I could actually get the surgery done, they required me to do some blood work and to get a COVID test. This was actually a little bit of a confusing process for me because I was told on the phone by one person that I would need to have some of the testing done specifically at the hospital and everything else I could have at like a nearby place. And then when I called the nearby place, they told me, actually, no, you can have everything done here. So my little tip to anybody who's about to go through a D&E or a D&C, don't assume that everybody who's working either at the hospital or at some sort of medical facility knows what they're talking about. Don't be afraid to ask a million questions to make sure, hey, can I truly get everything done here, or what's this process like? Because I almost messed up being able to get surgery done because of all the back and forth and multiple appointments I had to make. So long story short, pro tip, be thorough. Don't be afraid to be annoying. Ask the questions you feel are important. So once I got that blood work done and the COVID test came back negative, I was good to go. After I had fully checked in, they took me to this room where people go, before they get their surgery done. So everybody's kind of in hospital gowns. Everybody has their own bed and area that they're at. I'm pretty sure this was the same room that I went back to after my surgery, but don't quote me on that. My husband was told to wait outside in the regular lobby waiting room before he would be able to come into the room I was at. But once I was prepped for surgery, he was going to be allowed to come back in. When I first got there, they told me that I would need to change into a hospital gown. But before I fully did that, I was given these warm, wet cloths, basically. They were like 2 per packet. They're like hot and wet, and you were told to wipe down your arms, your legs, your chest, and you were told to use 5 out of 6 of them for that. And then the 6th towel was going to be what they used later to wipe down your back for you. I also had to use this weird brown liquid and put that on a Q-tip and put one at each nose, I think to clear like my sinuses, to make sure I could clearly breathe. And then once I did that and then put on a mask, I was then told to put on my gown. And once I was done and ready, they had the curtains closed, but once I was done and ready for that, they would come back in and proceed with other things for me to get ready to have surgery. I'm also not really focusing too much on the background on my miscarriage in this video. Like I said, I just wanted to make this video to describe what it's like before, during, and a little bit after a D&E/D&C for women that want to know more personal, detailed experience. Like I said before, if you do want to know more about my miscarriage, you can go ahead and watch the previous video. But for anybody who's wondering like, wow, she's really like cutting into the medical jargon of all this, like, yeah, because I want to just purely tell you guys what it's like to get this surgery done. Anyways, just wanted to plug that in there, but let's keep talking about the surgery. I don't remember entirely because parts of the day were a little foggy to me, but I'm pretty sure also before surgery they gave me 2 ibuprofen to take. The entire time that you're in this little waiting room, and like, picture a room where it's like maybe like, I don't know, 10 beds, and on one side of the room there's like 5 beds, and with each bed there's like a curtain around it, and there's people in some of the beds and some of the beds are empty. And with the curtain, you can kind of use it to pull it closed so that people can't see you on the bed, or pull it open, depending on what's going on with your doctors and nurses like that. If you've ever had surgery before, you probably know this information already. But to anybody who maybe this is your first time having surgery, I just wanted to get that information out there to you. Also, before the surgery actually begins, you have people the whole time asking you all kinds of questions. Like, you'll meet a bunch of people, but they'll ask you like basic questions like, what's your name, your birthday, just basic kind of stuff. I think to keep an eye on you to make sure you're all good. Also, before surgery, depending on what your doctor recommends, for me, I was not allowed to eat or drink, I think. No, I'm sorry. I wasn't allowed to eat in the 12 hours prior to surgery. And then I wasn't allowed to drink anything for like the 4 hours prior to surgery. And then they allowed you to have like some clear liquids, but only up until a certain point. Long story short, just follow whatever your doctor says. Something that was actually kind of nice is, even while talking to a billion people, and I'm here for a reason that I don't exactly love, I must have had like at least like 7 or 8 different people tell me like, I'm sorry for your loss. Everybody, I would say, at the hospital that I interacted with that day was so kind and thoughtful and caring. Everybody was very aware why I was there, and I really appreciated that. So after I'm in a gown, they're starting to set me up. They gave me an IV in my left arm, like right on the side of my elbow. They also put these sticky things on my chest. I think that was in relation to the heartbeat monitor. By the way, pro tip, before they do any of this, before they hook up your IV and the sticky things, go pee. I'm serious. Like, you don't want to have to try to go to the bathroom with an IV in your arm if you can help it. So if you think to yourself like, oh, I don't really have to go, just go pee. Like, great heads up pro tip. Another thing, if you never had surgery before, something that the nurses and staff commonly do is they give you these really warm blankets, because when you're in that hospital gown with nothing but a gown and these rubber, sticky sock things on, you're going to get cold. So they have blankets that are ready to go, that are in like warmers and stuff like that. So don't be afraid to ask for more blankets at all times. Also, I remember reading online about D&Cs and D&Es that some women prior to the surgery itself are prescribed medication in order to soften their cervix. I didn't get any of that, but I figured I should mention that because it does seem to be common enough that other women have gone through that. That could be part of your journey too. Another person I spoke to that day is the anesthesiologist. If you've ever had surgery before, this is something that they do. They want you to talk to an anesthesiologist and make sure that they understand your situation, how they're going to be administering the anesthesia. And I always like to mention this to them, but when I had my wisdom teeth surgery done, I woke up during it, which was pretty horrifying. So although wisdom teeth surgery compared to this is a very different, wisdom teeth was very small of a surgery. This is a little bigger. I always like to mention that to them. So if you have any kind of strange experiences in your past, it doesn't hurt. Like, the more information, the better. Also, before the surgery, I got to talk with my actual doctor who was going to be performing the surgery. And I remember I had some questions about conceiving afterwards and stuff like that. But one sort of like silly question I had to her was, can I drink alcohol after the surgery? But she, I kid you not, she literally said to me, hey, if you want to go home, have a couple glasses of wine and chill out, that's fine. She's like, it's not a big deal. It's not going to be a harm to you. Just don't tell anybody I told you that. Which I thought was like kind of funny and like humorous and lighthearted, and such a dark and kind of like depressing surgery. It was really nice to have somebody just laugh with me for a second. By this point, I'm all pretty much set up, so they brought in my husband to sit down at this chair next to my bed, and then he got a chance also to ask any questions that maybe he had thought about that I hadn't asked already. After that, we were pretty much ready to go. I want to say the entire time before surgery that I was in this room and getting prepped was like about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. But then I said goodbye to my husband, and he went back into the main waiting lobby area while I went into surgery. As they were wheeling me over, they gave me some sort of liquid relaxing substance. I don't exactly know what it's called, but it made me feel like I was floating on a cloud. But I imagine they do that just to relax your body, like prior to giving you the actual anesthesia. Then they wheeled me over into the OR, and at this point, whatever they had given me was very much kicking. I could feel myself like being a little out of it. and they took me over like with the bed and then told me, and I guess they raised the bed. And my memory gets a little foggy here, so I'm doing my best, but I'm guessing they raised the bed, and then there was the operating table I needed to move to. And they told me, like, okay, what we're going to need you to do is just kind of shimmy over. Like, you're here, we need you to be here. And I said, okay. And then nothing. And in my mind, even though I could hear them telling me these directions, my body was just like, we're just going to sit here. And it must have took them telling me at least 3 different times, like, we need you to move, that I went, oh my God, Alexis, you need to start moving. So I finally moved from the bed to the table and kind of like plopped. And I realized like at that point I was definitely starting to feel it because my body didn't have very much energy. Like I felt like very relaxed and tired. And then that's basically it. My memory starts to really fade here, but basically I remember being on that operating table and then not much after that. When I woke up out of surgery, I was back in the bed that they were wheeling me around in originally. I think I woke up in the same room. I wasn't exactly sure. It's either the same room as the room that you wait in prior to surgery, or it's a room that looks exactly like it. But either way, I woke up in the bed, kind of like a little still out of it and looking around and figuring out what was going on. I remember hearing the heartbeat monitor kind of make some noise, and I look up and I think the lowest I saw my heartbeat drop to, or heart rate, was 47 beats per minute. I remember thinking, oh my God, like I must be really relaxed. There was a nurse next to me who was going to help me kind of come out of surgery and get me set up to eventually be able to leave. I had been laying on like this gigantic big pad, and she told me that I needed to sit up and put on these disposable undies instead. And basically it just looks like a giant stretchy adult diaper. And I remember I was still quite out of it, that in my mind for some reason I thought this meant she was going to put them on for me. I was very out of it, and it took her like telling me a couple times like you need to take these and you need to put them on, that I was like, oh yeah. And yeah, like I said, I think the anesthesia definitely hit me pretty hard. After I put on the disposable undies, I laid back in the bed and I could almost feel like the anesthesia like messing with me emotionally. And the nurse asked me like how I was feeling, if I was feeling all right. And at this point, I hadn't cried at all, like during the whole surgery and operation, like obviously before the surgery, I'm talking to everybody. And for some reason, talking to her just made me like kind of lose it. And I started crying, and she said something to me like, oh, like, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. And I was like really kind about it. And then she actually asked me like a couple questions, like, oh, how far along were you and stuff like that. I got a chance to open up about what had happened and what I had been through. And although that stuff was like really hard to talk about, it's honestly kind of nice to be able to say like, yeah, I was this far along and then we found out about this, because a lot of people didn't want to talk to me, and even now like don't want to talk to me about that stuff because it's hard, not for me but also for them. Then they realize how hard of a topic this is. So very few people ever asked for details. It was nice to be able to just kind of like talk to a total stranger about it for a little bit. So once I felt ready enough to start moving around, she rolled up with this like recliner chair on wheels essentially, and had me just move like 2 feet from the bed to the chair, and then rolled me over to a different part of the room. Interesting little side note that's not really directly related to the surgery. I'm like 95% sure one of the other women that were there getting her surgery or procedure done was there for IVF. I remember like a little bit of the conversation and her saying something about like, oh, I hope these babies stick, or something like that. And I remember thinking to myself, how interesting. I'm here for a D&E because of my miscarriage. And then in the, basically like, yeah, in the same room, like there's a woman out there getting like IVF. And what a contrast of experiences, you know? After she took me over in this chair, she asked me like what I wanted to drink and eat. If you've ever had surgery before, they offer you usually like water, cranberry juice, a couple other options, along with little snacks. Yeah, because, you know, you're not allowed to eat before surgery, and then you went through this whole surgery, and now by this time, you know, it's closer to like 4 or 5 p.m., you know, without eating for almost 24 hours, like you're going to be a little hungry. She then also took out my IV at this time, and then went to go have somebody get my husband so he could come into the room. And she kind of just told me, you know, You could sit here, eat and drink your stuff. She also gave me a folder with a bunch of pamphlets about recovering from this surgery. And then she also gave me this little basket that is actually from one of the nearby charities in my area that specifically helps women who have gone through some sort of pregnancy loss. A lot of the little things in that basket I still have today. Once I felt better and more awake, I told my husband that I was ready to go. And it didn't take very long. Like maybe I was sitting in the chair for like 15-20 minutes total, and then he went out to go get the car, and then they moved me from the recliner chair immediately into the wheelchair, and then she took me out to the front doors where my husband picked me up, and then went in the car and left. For that rest of the day, I did have some bleeding. It wasn't anything too crazy, and then some cramps, and they tell you, you can take Advil or ibuprofen. I'm not going to elaborate on the recovery in this video. I mainly just wanted to talk about what it's like getting the surgery done itself and what you can expect. I'm going to make in a separate video because my recovery was interesting enough that I think it warrants an entire different separate video. So that will be coming in the future. Once I've made that, it'll hopefully be right here in this video or down in the description. And like I said in the video before this, if it's currently blank, it means I haven't made it yet. I'm sorry. My recovery was kind of bizarre, and I experienced some things that definitely were not normal and were not typical of anything I read online. So I very much want to get that information out there to you all. That is it for the rest of this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you can relate, or if this video resonated with you in any way, or if you have anything you want to add, please feel free to like and comment. And yeah, I will see you all in the next one. Bye! Are you coming up here? Come up here then. Come on.